Many students are going to get tripped up when they see a tricky derivative like this on their exam, but that doesn't have to be you, Ninja, but only if you stick around until the end. See, if you think you can use the chain rule here and your answer is x to the sine of x times cosine of x, I hate to break it to you, but that doesn't get you the right answer because the chain rule required that the base you started with was a constant such as e. But we've got the variable x here, and so we have to use a different approach. Sometimes adding to a problem, believe it or not, will make it simpler to work with, even if the problem looks like it's now tougher. So when I write this now as e to the natural log of x to the sine of x, you might be doubting if this is going to help us, but remember that because what we started with had x raised to some complicated power, using the rule of natural logs and logarithms, that power sine of x can actually be brought outside of the natural log. And by the way, you don't even need to use this trick, believe it or not, using e and natural log here. Some of you lightning fast ninjas probably know the faster solution. You'll let me know in the comments below. And for others who are curious, check the video above for a hint. Okay, so moving on, after I bring the sine of x outside of the natural log expression, f of x equals e to the sine of x times natural log of x. And what I want to do now as the next step is notice that, hey, I can use the chain rule here because the base now is a constant e, and the power it's raised to is simpler because it's just a product of two functions where neither of those functions are raised to some other complicated power. So for the chain rule here, to make this look like a composition of functions, I'm going to let g of x be some new function where I say that g of x equals sine of x times natural log of x. And that allows us to write f of x as e raised to the g of x. And the reason we're doing this is if you remember for using the chain rule on e functions, the derivative of f of x here is going to be e to the g of x times g prime of x, which we need to find in the next step. And before I forget, do you want to become a master ninja in this dojo? Smash that subscribe button and check the description for exclusive ninja perks like early video access for members, awesome ninja swag, and more. So for finding g prime of x here now, since g of x is sine of x times natural log of x, we got to use the product rule. And if you remember, you take the derivative of the left part, which will give you cosine of x, times the right part, which is original, plus the original left part this time, times the derivative of the right part. Okay, so now that we have g prime of x, because f of x was written as e to the g of x, and we know that f prime of x from the chain rule is e to the g of x times g prime of x, it's time to plug in everything because we just found what g prime of x is. So on the left-hand side here, this is going to be your e to the g of x, and then the right portion is going to be the g prime of x that we found above. And if you remember when we started this problem, we were using this e to the natural log trick, right? But we no longer need it now because we used it to be able to take a derivative, but now we want to simplify our final answer, correct? So for the left-hand side here, I'm going to rewrite it as we started with e to the natural log of x to the sine of x. And my personal preference also is cosine of x times natural log of x. I'm going to write it like this because I want it to look, nicer to work with. That could be something that you decide differently, and that's okay. But by writing the left-hand side here the way I did, as a next step to simplify things further, on the left here, that's just going to become x to the sine of x, and we're done.